Johnny Tillotson, welcome.
Leigh, it's great to be here.
That concert hall's almost sold out.
Yeah, I've never worked that concert hall, and it's such
you'll
a beautiful place. I ran into Alan Ong. I was at the Astana Hotel in Singapore for Valentine's week, and I've known Alan Ong for quite a few years, he and his family. And he said, well, what would you think about coming into Melbourne to do a concert? And I said, well, I'd love to do that because outside of doing Burt Newton's show, which is a great TV show, I've never actually had a chance to perform here.
You've performed on the Gold Coast, haven't you?
Gold Coast, Sydney, all the little wonderful country towns, and that's why I've enjoyed, and Brisbane, of course. That's what I do a long tour. The reason I like that is because it's not all the same. There's a different flavor to the little country towns, and you stop and have the little counter lunches. And I'm not a drinker, but the only time that I ever drink is a little one of those. I guess in that part of Australia, you call it a stubby.
A stubby, yeah, that's right.
And here they call it. What do you call it?
We call them stubbies.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Just a little teeny little.
Just enough to whet the appetite.
Yes, and it just goes good with the food. And we kind of center our touring around the counter lunch.
Let's go back in history a bit with Johnny Tillotson. When did you start in the business?
Well, I guess starting would be when I had the first vision of it. And I used to watch movies. I'd walk to the theater and watch Roy Rogers, who was a singing cowboy. And I told my mother that I wanted to be a cowboy star and sing. And she said, well, why don't you just do the singing, because riding a horse is not that easy. So I kind of wanted to do it at 9, and then I got my own. I was on a radio show, and then I got my own. Then I was on a television show, and I got my own television show. And then I continued hosting my television show as I did all of my studies at the University of Florida.
What year would have that been?
Let's see, I graduated from high school in 55, so in 59 I graduated from the University of Florida, and I had my first record, Dreamy Eyes, in 59.
59, yeah.
And as soon as I got out of college, Archie Blyer, that owned Cadence Records, he said, if you want to take a chance with me, and I really did. He was the person that I wanted to record for, because he felt that it was always the song. And he didn't have that many artists. He had Andy Williams and the Everly Brothers, and I wanted to be part of that small but elite group. And I said, I have no money. He said, don't worry about that. I'll have a ticket for you. Fly to New York. I'll pick you up. You stay at my house with my wife and stepdaughter. Mm-hmm. And all we're going to do now, Johnny, is look for hit songs. And it was just great. It kind of channeled my focus into what you record. You never give yourself the luxury of going into the studio unless you think you have a hit.
Let's go back 3 years to 1956, September of 1956, and I have a photo in front of me here of you chatting to Elvis Presley. Was he an idol of yours at that stage?
Absolutely. I used to be the opening act for all of the shows that came to Jacksonville, whether it be Buddy Holly or Jim Reeves or whoever it might be. And Mae Axton, that later wrote Heartbreak Hotel, was a mentor of mine. And so she worked it out so I would open these shows, these big shows. And it pained her a great deal when she came to me one day and she said, the big show coming to town, unfortunately, you can't open the show. And I said, well, haven't I been doing a good job? She said, but you've been doing a great job. But there's a new singer from Memphis, and they're paying him $50, and he's going to be the opening act. And, of course, he has his two musicians, Scotty and Bill. And I said, well, who is he? And they said, Elvis Presley. And I said, never heard of him. He said, well, that's the whole idea. We're trying to break him in the South. And he's got a brand new record called That's All Right, Mama. And I said, okay. I said, would you introduce me to Elvis? And she said, of course I would. So I didn't get to open that show. And the show started in Texas before it got to Jacksonville. They did 3 appearances in Texas with Elvis opening. He did about 12 minutes. But the problem was no one could follow Elvis Presley. So they decided during this long drive in the pink Cadillac, they all decided, well, maybe, although no one has ever heard of him, he better close the show. And so he had to do every rhythm and blues, rock and roll song that he ever knew. A shake, rattle, and roll, flip, flop, and fly, the flip side of That's All Right, Mama. And he became the closing act. And we became friends there. And the picture that you're holding in your hand is taken at the Florida Theater. And Elvis and I met again. And when I was a disc jockey, I told my listeners, I said, I'm going to go to Jacksonville to get an interview with Elvis, not realizing how his popularity had grown and how hard it would be to get to him. And I couldn't really grab his attention. So I yelled out at the top of my voice, whoop.
And you got his attention.
Got his attention. He said, Johnny, what can I do for you? I said, I just got to get a short taped interview. And he said, just be patient. I'll be with you. And he did. And we remained friends all through his life. And it seemed like every time that I was performing in Las Vegas, Elvis was also over at the Hilton Hotel.
You'd be happy to know that Priscilla Presley is in town
She
too.
is. She has a brand new fragrance. And she's a lovely lady. And I wish her all the very best.
My special guest is Johnny Tillotson. Johnny, let's go back to perhaps your childhood. Were you a musical kid?
I don't think so. I think my mother wanted to be a dancer and a singer, and so I guess in my family genes, I suppose I was very receptive to music. She used to send music to me, all different kinds, pop, standards, country songs, everything, and I just naturally learned them actually to please her. And then when we got a radio station in my hometown, they had a show called the Young Folks Review, and I went down and tried out, and they said that they would like me to be on. So every Saturday morning, I would walk down to the radio station, and then I made sure I'd walk back down the main street, and there was only one radio station, so we kind of had a captive audience. And people would come out and say, Johnny, I heard you, and you sounded great. So that, of course, helped me a great deal to have confidence. And when you're very young, confidence is so very important. So my dad also did charity work. He used to sing. So the most important part about that was the fact that they weren't resistant when I showed interest in it.
Poetry Emotion 1960, the first of your big hits?
That's right. It was the first one that broke into the top 5. And I picked that song because to me, it was like holding a mirror up to what ladies, the magic of ladies, if you will, the way they smile and toss their hair and that intangible quality that you really can't bottle that makes a lady. And I said to myself, if I'm right and if this is a hit, I think that ladies all over the world will be able to identify with this song. And so it was a big hit for me.
Another hit, too, that you really wrote for Elvis Presley, well, perhaps you didn't write for him, but it was self-composed, It Keeps Right On a Hurtin', which was later recorded by Presley. That must have been a delight to have a man like that record that song for you.
It was. I didn't want to do It Keeps Right On a Hurtin' myself. My father was quite ill, and Hank Williams was always a songwriter I admired, because Hank Williams used words like a painter to paint pictures. And one day, I guess I was feeling really sad about my dad, and I wrote this title down because it was the truth. It keeps right on a hurtin'. And then when we went down to visit him in hospital, it just came to me, just like tears would come to you. It came to me just like in a flash, and I wrote it. And Archie Blyer, we'd gone through about 30 songs, and I was kind of disappointed. He didn't like any of the Neil Sedaka songs, any of the Neil Diamond songs, any of the Howard Greenfield songs, Jackie DeShannon songs. And out of frustration, he said, well, you must have written something. And I said, well, I did write something. And I showed it to him, and I was sure he wouldn't really like it. But I got through about the first verse, and he said, "Hold it." He said, "We have a hit song there," and he went to the piano and he put some chords in it that made it really pretty. And he was right, and he said, "But I know how you feel about the song." I explained it was very personal. He said, "Let's do this. Let's put it on the B side, and we'll record something else on the A side." But sure enough, the B side came off in I think we did 3 takes.
Goodness.
And everybody in the studio said that was it. And so it wasn't a real surprise when Archie called me up. He said, I really think we have a number 1 or maybe number 2 record.
What was the A side of that record?
What I thought was going to be the A side? Aaron Schroeder had written a song called A Very, Very, Very Good Year for Girls. It was kind of like a Bobby Rydell thing. It was real cute. But there was something about Hurtin' that was right from the heart. And I guess Archie was proven correct because it has been recorded by 112 artists. And getting back to Elvis, and you were speaking of Priscilla, I always felt Miss Priscilla Presley had the most beautiful eyes. So I had sent him over, I'd sent a copy of Dreamy Eyes to him because he had a tendency to sing a little bit like Bill Kenny of the Ink Spots on ballads. Like, for example, Bill would go, "If I didn't care." So I figured he could go, thinking of Priscilla, Dreamy Eyes. Well, he told me later he'd heard this keeps right on the Hurtin' in the Army. And since he picked all the songs, he said, I can see why you would send me Dreamy Eyes. But he said, I just always liked Keeps Right on the Hurtin', and since he always picked his own songs, he decided to do that. In fact, we had a big laugh about it up in Las Vegas. He said, I changed some of your words. I said, Elvis, you could have changed the title, and I would have been so thrilled for you to do it. So he was one of 112, and I go to Graceland quite a lot, and Priscilla has done a wonderful, wonderful job of making Graceland a lovely place to visit, and she deserves a great deal of credit.
Johnny, when you're not on stage, not performing, how do you relax?
Well, my wife and I have a lot of the same tastes. We go to a lot of sports events. We love collecting old toys. She collects spinning tops. I collect
yo-yos.
All sorts of yo-yos.
Yes,
some
I've heard.
From the 30s, some before the United States was discovered, right on up to current times.
Someone told me, interrupting you there, that you've got something like 2,500 yo-yos.
That's right. And they're unique. Some of them are superhero yo-yos that are kind of like have movement, like Wonder Woman or Spider-Man or Superman, and some of them are carved by the old great Filipino demonstrators.
Right.
And they would carve beautiful scenes on them, like a ship in the distance. And
Well, I see you've got 1 or 2 sitting here beside you.
I do.
Yeah.
And if they have, if there's like a silver streak across the wooden ones, they would make that the ocean, and they would put birds in the sky and sometimes carve your name. And I have ones that from the 30s, as I say, just beautiful colors and beautiful logos. But when I come to Australia, I always try to I increase my Coca-Cola collection because I'm always looking for, there's a certain really nice Coca-Cola tin one that I'd like to upgrade.
Right.
And also, I like the ones that have the paper inserts with the Sprite boy. He's pretty cool. And actually, the drink Sprite is from this kind of whimsical character. So we do lots of things together, and it kind of rejuvenates us. And she's very, very talented. We have done 20 musical videos for EMI in Singapore, which is distributed in Malaysia, Thailand, Hong Kong.
Of course, you have a very big market over there, don't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm lucky to do that. And then she just completed directing and producing Johnny Tillotson Sings the Golden Hits. And she does a great job because we shot a lot of this at Paramount Ranch where they do Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman.
Right.
And each music video is unique. And we try to grow every time with hopes that in the future we'll be able to do them for some other artists as well.
Well, as I say, you have brought in some yo-yos here today.
Yeah.
Have you picked up any around Melbourne?
Picked up a couple just yesterday.
Good on you.
And then I told some of the collectors around town where I was staying, so they've called in. So I plan to meet.
To my special guest, Johnny Tillotson.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee.
For that